Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. That was my little rendition of the solo from Goodbye to Love by the Carpenters. Now, I came across some other videos showing you how to play this on the tube the other day. Now, I'm not going to show you how to play it because the other videos out there show you a lot better, I think. Plus, there are other videos that go over the chord sequence underneath it. But what I wanted to do was just post a little video regarding that song and that solo, because for all you younger people out there, you might be interested, because that song, including that solo, is actually a pivotal part of pop history, really, because simply because the combination of a ballad and a heavy overdriven guitar had never been done before. That was credited, actually, it's sort of received wisdom out there in the musical community, that was the song that started off the power ballad. You know, now where would we be without power ballads? Where would Aerosmith be without power ballads? Where would the sales of cigarette lighters be without the power ballad? But basically, the Carpenters, for anyone of you who don't know, were super, I'd say cheesy, but they were really mega cheesy band. Very successful, wrote fantastic songs. But when I grew up in the early 70s, or when I was my formative musical years in the early 70s, we liked Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin. The Carpenters were a joke. They were a band that your grandmother liked, mainly because their output was just so cheesy. And I've looked at lots of videos of the Carpenters over the years, and they're just so cheesy. You know, I love them to bits, but they're so cheesy. And of course, the fantastic voice of Karen, who tragically died very early, in her early 30s, from anorexia, due to the pressures, even back then, the pressures to be thin. But anyway, that's another story. But going back to the story, is that when they were recording that album, now Richard Carpenter was the musical director, he was probably the producer of the records as well. And during the recording of that session, they knew they wanted a guitar solo, so they got the guy in who's called Tony Peluso. He was their guitarist, he was a session player, and he was part of their touring ensemble at the time. His first shot was clean tone, both pickups, sweet little solo, and Richard said, no, what I just want to shake things up a little bit. And boy did he, to quote Paul McCartney. He asked that Tony if he'd got a fuzz box, and they recorded the solo, and the rest is history. And as I say, that combination of a schmaltzy ballad, you know, I mean, Richard Carpenter's songs were beautiful, the melodies were great. He was very much in the sort of Burt Bacharach school of songwriting. In fact, they did a famous cover of Close to You, which was Burt Bacharach's song. And you've only got to play that solo, and it's melodic, because Tony, in order to play that solo, he employed a little trick which... Okay, well, part one of the video was rudely interrupted by the fact that my phone ran out of storage space. Apple. So anyway, I'm on the iPad now. So we'll pick up the story of Goodbye to Love, the solo. What I was saying, I think, when I was really interrupted, is that when he recorded that solo, he used a trick that you will hear on lots of these types of solos, these kind of power ballad type solos, pop, rock type solos, in the fact that the first few measures are the melody. So you play the melody of the song first, and then improvise. And this is, you see the template of Goodbye to Love. He plays the first, probably the first, well, in fact most of the solo, the first solo, not the outro, most of the middle solo is the melody, and then he just improvises off towards the last couple of bars. Then at the outro he just goes crazy, which was apparently the instruction that Richard Carpenter gave him, just go crazy. So yeah, that solo combining heavy rock type guitar, overdriven guitar, fuzzed in this case, with a ballad, set the template for power ballads. Now it wasn't long after that, because this Goodbye to Love was released in 1972. In 1973, the Isley Brothers picked up the baton, and they combined their traditional soul type of songs with heavy rock guitar when Ernie Isley joined, and it was the Jasper Isley incarnation of the Isley Brothers. So they recorded That Lady, which was an old Isley Brothers song from the 60s, and then they just recreated it with that fuzzed, phased Ernie Isley, Hendrixy sort of sound. And again on Summer Breeze, which is an old Seals and Crofts song, that's another one of the Isley Brothers songs where they took the original song and then they put that fuzz guitar on it. In fact, there's an extended version of Summer Breeze when the guitar just goes wailing off over the bass chords. So those songs, the Isley Brothers, they picked up the baton later, formed the template for some power ballads, a combination of one genre and another. And in fact, a lot of guitar players like Steve Lukather, for example, made a lot of money by doing sessions for bands like Earth, Wind and Fire, did the same thing. He also, just taking the story on a little bit further, historically, from his historical perspective, when that genre of the power ballad, i.e. the ballad or the soul with a combination of an overdriven, distorted guitar became the norm, then when Michael Jackson wanted to get on MTV, and he couldn't get on MTV because he was a black artist, MTV was a white rock station, that's why he called up Eddie Van Halen in order so Eddie Van Halen could play on Beat It and they could get on MTV. And again, that was a combination of a soul act with the heavy guitar, and people like Steve Lukather then took up that same template for Lionel Richie when he did Running with the Night, and that's the reason Lionel Richie got onto MTV and it boosted his career. So going back to Richard Carpenter, God bless him, when he said to Tony Peluso, "Do you have a fuzz box?" He set the template for a whole genre of sort of rock pop music, and one of my favourite bands, Toto, sort of made their living off this sort of combination of pop and rock. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that, but yeah, an interesting story. And one thing that's just sprung to my mind, oh yes, the Carpenters fan base, when they heard Goodbye to Love, were horrified that he would sully their beautiful music with this overdriven guitar, and Richard Carpenter apparently got some hate mail from his fans. Valid point, I guess. If you like the schmaltz, then you don't want it sullied by your the fuzzbox. But anyway, just a little history lesson for anyone out there who's interested. All the best, see you all soon.